Hello guys and welcome back to HJW Gaming and another update of the Event Season 1 server, where there's been a fair bit of change going around the map, but actually not a huge amount to talk about, which we'll get to in the future, at least as far as map progression comes to. But I think there's a fair amount to talk about, at least as far as how this server is playing out and generally people's opinions of this server. So first off, I'll just kind of do a season update, and then we'll kind of get into a lot of that as we go through. So last time you saw would have been end of day 5. It's now kind of like a 2-week update. I think it's day 17, as you can see here. So it's just after 2 weeks, broken up slightly, of course, by the holidays. So we're doing a little bit more of a more up-to-date version now, to show you how things have changed. Of course, with the map at that point, we didn't have a kingdom established and only had, I think it was 2 or 3 different control points. So we've now progressed pretty thoroughly, as you'll see as we open up this map. The map has changed pretty significantly. Last time you saw, we were down here moving around in Eriador, moving towards this pass here, looking just in case and to kind of ward off any threat from the Bane Fellowship. And you can see that we, of course, went through the pass there. There was some PvP around this area, but I would say we definitely outnumber the opposition here when we came up against Bane. I think they might have had quite a few genuine Season 1 players joined in with their ranks. So we were successful here. We definitely had them on spend as well, so we did get through pretty quickly and then have progressed onwards, picking up Dunland, and then we've moved on as well to pick up Orthanc, just so we can move through and start getting capitals in the bag. You'll see as well, we've then also gone around after because we rushed that way just in case we had a threat on our borders. We've then kind of gone back and picked up all of the keeps that we left behind within our region, with the exception currently of Rivendell, which will be picked up today. Of course, that also includes the Grey Havens. So once we've got Rivendell with Orthanc and Grey Havens, that will make up 3 capitals already, which are part of the requirements for season rewards. So that's a great kind of start to get going on as well. And then on top of that, we've also now captured the first pass. This opened, I believe, yesterday when Chapter 9 finished, and we could therefore progress. We've moved through this pass, and we've now started moving into the Dol Guldur region, as you can see, including capturing a lot of these kind of crossings. So we have started progressing across this region already. So we are moving pretty fast currently, capturing a lot of areas, and I wouldn't be surprised. We will have some of these ring regions under our control pretty sharpish. The other thing we've also done was capture this one other pass here, which we did pretty shortly after capturing this one. Reason being is that it was the only other open pass at the time into our territory, as the passes from spawn region to spawn region were not open, so we didn't have those captured at that time. So we reduced the risk on ourselves and captured that as soon as possible, so there was no kind of pincer or side attack possible. You'll see if I look at some of these ones here, currently they have no building on them, but it's something to keep an eye on just in case, and we do have springs around them, so if we ever needed to react, we would be capable of doing so, but for now, there's not a kind of an urgent threat on that. Now, as far as the rest of the map goes, so we've kind of spoken around how we've progressed and hit Bane here. It should also be said, of course, that I think a lot of the problem here was Bane was going into their main accounts, were going into a new season, so they weren't able to dedicate a huge amount of time to this server as it was. And then, of course, once we encroached on their territory, I think a lot of them therefore then decided to move on and just fully focus their main accounts rather than playing on a season 1. And I'll kind of get onto the issue with that in the future, later on in the video basically, but I don't think there's a huge amount of threat coming down this side currently anyway. And then other kingdoms we have, you'll notice there's a huge amount of territory taken, particularly in this northern region, but now starting to come down the east as well, and this is from a fellowship called West. Now this is great to see, as of course the main focus of this season 1 server was going to be a 3-way content creator battle. However, one of the creators pulled out And what we're actually seeing here, which is pretty great, is a fellowship playing Season 1 and just playing it properly, and they're actually doing incredibly well. They've taken a lot of regions here, they seem very organised, and they are progressing through the server and capturing a lot of keeps. So this is great to see that it's actually not a content creators team, it's just a team that's decided to join and play a Season 1, and in my opinion they're doing pretty well at it. So that's the West Fellowship. You'll see them when we go through the rankings in a bit. Moving down to the south, we have this fellowship here. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but I think, well, it says Tron, so we'll go with Tron. This is the Tron Kingdom, and they've captured most of the Gondor region. Now, as they're majority Russian-speaking, I believe, I think this is a lot of the players that were persuaded to join by the third content creator. I'm not sure who it was. It was I think it was called Second Chance or something like that in English. But yeah, it was a Russian content creator. So I think these are the players that he persuaded to join. But as you can see, they've kind of just stayed around their area at the minute and picked up various keeps at the minute. Nothing kind of threatening on various borders or any progression looking for those borders. Though they have since captured Minas Morgul, as you can see. They haven't, I don't think, progressed into King Under the Mountains territory, but or maybe they have. No, they haven't. So they have captured Minas Morgul, and I would understand them to be in alliance with each other, which would make sense, seeing as they are direct neighbours and kind of been allowed to take keeps side by side. And then last but not least, we have King Under the Mountains team in the southeast. Now, similar to Bane, we had the issue with the majority of King Under the Mountains main team. Dobie, I'm not sure what they call themselves now. I think it was Dobie. It might be Kilt now. Were going into a season at the same time as well, so they couldn't fully prioritise this server. And I think they've kind of majority have since dropped it, because we're not seeing a huge amount of map progression kind of coming from them. They do have they have captured Argonath, for example, but I don't see a lot of progression up towards these passes. There's kind of a couple of people, but not a huge amount of progression going on. So my understanding is it looks like they've fully prioritised their main team's accounts. And I guess that's where the kind of first discussion about these servers come in that as creators, and of course our messaging to everyone else kind of came out about a week before, we actually brought those out with very little kind of turnaround time. We weren't given a lot of heads up as to the dates these servers would start. And so that's a huge issue, as we can't then arrange our primary teams around this if we're already scheduled to go into other servers. I, of course, was fortunate in the fact that my kind of main season has petered out and there's not really a lot else to do, so I can focus on this, as can anyone who is playing, of course, in that server with me. But others who are starting on main team accounts are, of course, going to focus their main accounts rather than a Season 1. So that's kind of the first issue, is there was too much turnaround, I think, on these, and not enough time to build up and enough communication, not just communication with the creators, but communication to the creators that we could then pass on to others, which has caused an issue, I think, in the sense I think this Season 1 is pretty stale. I'm not going to lie to you. Between the dropout of the other creator and that issue with team timings, I think that's going to cause a pretty stale Season 1. So we'll have to hope that Season 2 is a little bit more enjoyable. But yeah, so that's kind of the map. You'll see there's still a little bit going on with the Rohan thing here, but again, there's no enjoyment kind of coming through with this. We haven't had any information around what we're meant to do with this, whether we're meant to go and save Rohan. There's been no flag from the game to say that that's what you're kind of meant to do. So we're going to progress and just continue trying to capture the main objectives, of course, and just let that kind of go on as its own thing, and then maybe circle back towards the end if that's required. But there's not really a lot going on. I don't really understand the point of this kind of event region. It just seems to be kind of the black sheep area of the map that no one wants to pay any attention to. But yeah, let's go into leaderboard rankings anyway. You'll see that there's the affluence ranking is kind of dominated, of course, by those that are kind of primarily active still, and that's a lot of home. You'll see the top 7 here all being home players, and then we have I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but first King Under the Mountain player in 8th, same in 11th, but there's a lot of home here. And obviously credit to anyone who is on here working very hard and getting a lot of production under their belts. But the best thing to show this will be fellowship rankings, and you'll see that production-wise, home is very, very far ahead. We're not even at 200 players. We've got 133 at the minute. And we've got a lot of players looking to join, but they're trying to get to adjacent regions so that they can then join in with us. Because there's a little bit of an issue with joining fellowships when you're not particularly close to them, or not close enough to them. But yeah, you can see we're very, very far ahead production-wise, ahead of second and third put together, almost ahead of the top. Well, you can see you got West, for example, have most of the map, and they have fifth highest in production. So yeah, I think there's a little bit of a concern this season could become stale. So we are hoping that players, of course, do come and play this and do give us a threat, but we'll just have to see how this goes as the season goes on. Then there's this leaderboard here, which is a season points leaderboard. There's not really a huge amount of communication as to what this means, because it seems to be separate to the merit leaderboard. So there's some kind of other update around season points. But once I work out what that is, I kind of get back to you. And then commander-wise, you'll see it's a lot of the same, where kind of those who have the strongest commanders have done very, very well. You see there's quite a few strong commanders in here, which of course give you a huge advantage in a season one. And this is again where another one of those kind of communications I want to go through come in that the communications we were given weren't exactly clear to everybody else. The first thing is that this is a season one. That kind of wasn't really communicated to the creators or to anybody else until kind of the day that this was coming out. We were led to believe it would be kind of like an instant server. So those of you who are involved in PBE, you had a new server you could join that had your main account on it with your commanders, with your gear. We thought it might be like that, where it's still your account, but you don't have your commanders and gear. But anything you would spend in PBE, anything you would spend in PBE to get gems would also give gems to your main account, so they wouldn't be wasted just being bought in PBE. That's what I was led to believe that this server would be, because that would then mean that if you spent money in the event, you'd also benefit on your main account. So, of course, the issue with having it as a season one and not like that is anything spent in this server is basically wasted versus your main account, because it's not transferring over, which I think is a bit of an issue and was pretty poorly communicated from the developers' part. And I think that's led to a little bit of bad taste. And again, I think that again leads to why there's such difference here between fellowships and why a lot have chosen to drop out. Because, for example, we have a few players that have very, very strong commanders, and credit to them. But it does lead to a feeling of discontent amongst other fellowships who then don't want to spend because they'd rather spend on their main accounts, for example. So I think that was pretty poorly communicated from those developing the event across to the public and, of course, to the creators as well, which I think is a bit of an issue. Now, then, kind of the next issue to talk through kind of stacks on top of that previous one, where if you don't have the instance server, there's no kind of motivation to spend, as you lose out on your main account if you choose to do so. And the same thing is, there's not really any incentive to fully engage and play in this server for free-to-play and low-spend players. So if we look through the events, for example, there's not a huge amount to kind of drive engagement. So, for example, you get these very mediocre commanders given to you right at the beginning, and they're only given to you for the season, so you don't even get them fully unlocked. And they're probably the 3 weakest mythics in the game. And, so you don't even get those fully unlocked, you only get them for the season. So there's, again, nothing to drive you to want to get, more on this for future seasons. Same as a lot of the other events, there's no kind of reward really in it, no meaningful reward. These Red Book stages, for every 5 stages you do, you get 100 gems, which is 1/4 of a Matham chest. So if you're free to play or low spend, it's really hard to motivate yourself to get involved when these events are kind of rewarding so little. And I think, again, that's particularly another driver as to why this server's ended up so stale, is when, credit to the people who have got really strong commanders, brilliant commanders, they're going to absolutely dominate, and there's no issue with that. But the game, the season itself also needs to give a way for low and free-to-play players to be able to earn something as well within the game. And it must be tough knowing that, people have got strong commanders and you're never going to be able to get that, because if you spend hours doing, 40 red book levels, you're going to get to open 2 Matham chests as a reward and have a lot of manuscripts for Merry and Pippin, for example. Like, must be really tough. And I think they need to do more to kind of drive engagement. There needs to be more events. There should be something going on all the time, whether it's PvE or PvP incentive. There should be something going on all the time to drive people in Season 1 to earn those rewards, to make themselves stronger players. You should have the option to spend and be, great. You can speed up the process by spending, but you should be able to get there through free-to-play as well if you really engage and you put the time into playing this game a lot. And then you'll see people really putting in the time and engaging with these servers. And I think that's really lacking at the minute. And it really shows with these kind of map events that people, they could have done so much with this. Like, say you get gems for every AI army you defeat, or say you recapture Helm's Deep, you get 20 Mathams, something like that would really get people to engage and want to engage with the server. Because it's so hard, of course, when you come out of Season 2, as it is, to then enter the campaigns and step up against 15 seasoned veterans. But if you put a lot of time into the game, you should be able to earn enough to then, be more prepared for that switch. And I think that's clearly very, very lacking at the minute. So I think, I think that's kind of another criticism of these servers at the minute. There's a lot more to do. Of course, I'm continuing to do what I can with my team, keeping us focused on various events and challenges, making sure we progress as much as we possibly can, keeping our team engaged as much as possible. It's a little bit tricky when it's only PvE, and there's not a huge amount of reward at the end of the day. You get a couple of gems when you capture some of these keeps, but there needs to be a little bit more, basically. Anyway, if you're in one of these seasons, it could be that this is just my server and actually the other servers are incredibly competitive and entertaining, so potentially I'm coming from a poor viewpoint. But if you're in one of these servers, or indeed this server as well, let me know down in the comments how you're finding it and what your opinions are, whether you think there's changes or your ideas for changes that we could have. And if people do engage with that and put comments around what changes they would like to see, I will talk through some of those on my next update video for this server. But anyway, with that, I've been HJW Gaming, and I really hope to see you on the next one.